Hello students, I'm back with a poem from your textbook Flamingo. The name of the poem, as you can see, is Aunt Jennifer's Tigers by Adrian Rich. And this poem, children, let me tell you, addresses the constraints of married life experienced by a woman in a male-dominated world. It is written by Adrian Rich. She is an American poet, essayist, and feminist. Her earliest work, where you find this poem, Aunt Jennifer's Tigers, A Change of World, was written in 1951 and it won the prestigious Yale Younger Poets Award for her. She has addressed many problems plaguing humanity, and what is exemplary is the fact that she shines as a political feminist determined to reject a suppressive patriarchal culture. So a little bit about the theme of the poem. The poem addresses, as I said, the constraints of married life that a woman experiences. It talks about women who were caught under the oppressive hand of a patriarchal society, and it reveals how a woman struggles to keep her sanity in a male-dominated world. So if you look at it, you would agree with me that this poem is a sort of precursor to our chapter Should Wizard Hit Mommy? Remember, we saw a change in a shift in gender roles in the story Should Wizard Hit Mommy? And Aunt Jennifer's Tigers actually touches upon the times when women were oppressed. So let's read through the poem. Aunt Jennifer's tigers prance across a screen, bright topaz denizens of a world of green. They do not fear the men beneath the tree. They pace in sleek chivalric certainty. Aunt Jennifer's fingers fluttering through her wool find even the ivory needle hard to pull. The massive weight of Uncle's wedding band sits heavily upon Aunt Jennifer's hand. When Aunt is dead, her terrified hands will lie, still ringed with ordeals she was mastered by. The tigers in the panel that she made will go on prancing, proud and unafraid. So it's a short poem, 3 stanzas only. And as you can see, the first stanza actually introduces us to Aunt Jennifer's dream world, where she's creating something. The second stanza actually talks about the truth, the actuality of Aunt Jennifer's world, and the third stanza refers to her future. The poem is an exquisite example of symbolism because there are so many examples that we can see in the poem. Like, for instance, you have the tigers. They are symbolic of the unfulfilled dreams of Aunt. The tigers have been given the attributes of being very sure, aggressive, active, fearless, chivalric. Then you have the men beneath the tree, which stands for the male-dominated world of whom Aunt is scared. And that is why in the first stanza itself, it says, they do not fear the men beneath the tree. Yes? Aunt Jennifer herself is symbolic of all the women who are caught in the clutches of a bad marriage. The needlework that she is doing is symbolic of very feminine, passive activity. And actually, if you see, it is in line with Aunt's meek and timid character. The tree, as you can see in the third line, they do not fear the men beneath the tree. It is symbolic of the natural world. Means the tigers that she's embroidering are free-spirited in the natural world. The wedding band, which sits heavily upon her hand as per the poem, is symbolic of the institution of marriage and Aunt's subservient role in it. Therefore, as you can see, the poem is replete with examples of symbolism. Now let's look at the stanza-wise explanation. In the first stanza, as we dealt with in the third slide, it talks about her dream world. And it is here that Aunt Jennifer creates an alternate world of freedom through her creation. And what is she doing? She's actually embroidering tigers on a panel. And her embroidery, children, is representative of her desire to be free. And that is why, as you can see, there is a lot to understand why she has chosen tigers. Why? Because she wants to be free. She's craving for that liberty. And therefore, unlike her, her creations are unafraid of other beings in the jungle. So unlike her, because that's a contrast, she is afraid of the men in her life, whereas her creations are unafraid. Her tigers are energetic and gallant. They are chivalric. So chivalry is one attribute of the character which probably she wants to see in her husband, which she is unable to find. Therefore, she is giving that attribute to her creations. And yes, do not miss the verbs that have been used to describe the movement of the tigers. Prance, pace, which actually they are full of confidence. That is why when do you prance and pace? When you are confident, when you are sure. That is why the words that have been used also describe her tigers. And Jennifer's fingers fluttering through her wool. This is the second stanza, which reveals her reality. And the reality is that she is weak, she is timid, and she is enslaved, which is completely opposite to the tigers that she was embroidering. And as you can see, the second line says she finds even the ivory needle hard to pull. Ivory is very light, children, and therefore it clearly showcases her physical and mental ordeal. And that is why the poet says that she is unable to pull the needle, the ivory needle. Even though a wedding ring doesn't weigh much, yet the poet has used the term the massive weight of uncle's wedding band sits heavily upon Aunt Jennifer's hand, which indicates the kind of authority, the kind of dominance her husband exercised over her. This also means that somewhere her inner free spirit has been imprisoned by the patriarchal society. So the last stanza is actually very depressing because as you can see, the name Jennifer has been dropped and the poet says when aunt is dead. So she has actually lost her identity, as you can see in the third stanza. So as you can read the explanation given over here, it says that when aunt dies, she will still be terrified, petrified, and unable to stand up for her rights. But the tigers that she has created will be immortal, strong, and powerful. She is not even liberated in death. And that is what I said, she loses her identity too. And in fact, her death is a symbolic of her complete submission to the suppression that she has experienced throughout her life. Don't miss the last two lines, children. The tigers in the panel that she made will go on prancing, proud and unafraid. Do you see something over here? That the creator is no longer there, but her creation is going to be there forever. And they will continue to prance and roam around proudly, whereas the creator, as I have already mentioned, will still be terrified. Now let's look at the poetic devices used in the poem. Alliteration, fingers fluttering, prancing proud. So you have the same sounds being repeated over here. Here, let me tell you one thing. In some of the places, you might have seen chivalric certainty has been written as alliteration. It is not an example of alliteration, children, because the sound is different, even though the words start with C, but the sound is different. Synecdoche, just to give you a little explanation about this figure of speech, synecdoche is where a part of body is used to denote the whole. So here terrified hands have been used to talk about the entire personality of Aunt Jennifer, that is petrified. At the same time, it is also representative of the women who are caught in the clutches of bad marriage. So understood, synecdoche. Then metaphor, where there is an indirect comparison, ringed by ordeals and bright topaz. So ringed by ordeals because here ring refers to the wedding band and the problems it has brought to Aunt's life. So ringed by ordeals, there is also, as you can see, it's a homonym where ring is being used to denote clutches of, marriage, as well as ring that is worn on your finger. Bright topaz, here the bright color, the yellow color of the precious stone is being compared to the bright yellow color of the tigers. Then there is imagery in this phrase, men beneath the tree, because it paints the picture of men standing in the world of green, and bright topaz denizens, again, it brings before your eyes the picture of lovely bright yellow colored tigers. Now this is very important because as you can see that there is a definite contrast which is showcased in the poem. The contrast is a weak and timid lady is embroidering brave and confident tigers. Yes, and another contrast is that the aunt is not liberated in death, but her creations will continue to prance proud and unafraid after her death also. And there is also example of irony. The brutal beast is showcased as chivalric, whereas it's really ironic that the man in her life is the heartless oppressor. Similarly, Aunt Jennifer is mortal, but the tigers that she is embroidering, her creations, are immortal. They will outlive her. So that is also ironic. Now let's solve some questions as per the CBSE format. First, the MCQ. It is clear that the speaker in Aunt Jennifer's Tigers has an attitude of, this is from your sample question paper, option C. Now the next one is from one of the CBSE board papers. The word chivalric in the context means, yes, honorable and brave. How does the poet use the image of fingers fluttering through the wool to highlight Aunt Jennifer's victimization? Again, this is from your sample question paper. So how does he use the image of fingers fluttering through the wool? That she is burdened by the weight of her marriage, gender codes she has to follow as a woman, that even holding wool firmly is a task. It also highlights the oppressed state of women. What kind of married life did Aunt Jennifer lead? So we all know that Aunt Jennifer's wedding band reminds her of her unhappy married life. This is symbolic of male authority and power of her husband, who had suppressed her and made her a nervous wreck, and she had lost her identity. This question is also from one of the board papers. Thank you, children. All the best. I hope you liked the video. If you have, then please share it with your friends. Thank you.